know who's been vaccinated and who hasn't been. Some of the vaccines that will come on down the line will be multiple. There'll be multiple shots. So you've got to have, for reasons to do with the healthcare more generally, but certainly for a pandemic or for vaccines, you've got to have a proper digital infrastructure.
Naomi Wolf, thank you for joining us. Boy, you warned us about this. I think it was. I'm gonna pick a random date. I think it was in 2020. That was Tony Blair yesterday. We had Noor bin Laden and Joe Allen on yesterday because this is one of the more important of all the panels and all the talks at Davos. Naomi, it was a called shot by you. Tell us what Tony Blair laid out yesterday, ma'am.
Well, he laid out something that's been in their map since before the pandemic. They have planned for this digital infrastructure that would track everyone, everywhere, forever since the late 2010s. They planned a digital ID for Europe, some years ago. And what is obvious, and I made this case in the bodies of others and in this viral video you're referencing as well, the pandemic and the lockdowns, and the only way out of lockdown is the vaccine, and the only way to make sure you've had your vaccine and to let you back into society is to give you a digital passport. That's all pretext to lock people into this matrix, this digital matrix, which is the China-style social credit score. And they are not giving up. And you heard him say, and I hope you picked up the body language of these people now is fascinating. He's nervous. No one believes what they're saying anymore. He knows it's nonsense, but they're barreling ahead. You heard him say future vaccines will be multiple injections. Well, we know now the reason for the multiple injections of this mRNA vaccine, and it's to increasingly debilitate people. There's no physiological need that we've seen anywhere in the Pfizer documents for multiple injections, except the studies out of Hong Kong that the second one and then the third one are progressively damaging. So they're determined to herd us into smart cities, into the Internet of Things, and into a healthcare-based rationale for a social credit system like China, where literally they can turn off as we see in China, they can turn off your credit card, they can turn off your savings, they can turn off your access to food, access to schooling, and they're not giving up. And this is the fight of our lifetimes.
Real quickly, we got 30 seconds. I'm holding you through the break. Tony Blair as the pitchman. You don't have a technology person, you don't have a medical person. Why did they pick Tony Blair to be the pitchman for this, ma'am?
Well, he took a lot of money from, I believe he took money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I'll need to check. But money is flowing to these WEF spokespeople from many unaccountable front organizations, basically, as well as from McKinsey, as well as from, many nonprofits. So he's bought and paid. But there's no good reason, right? He's just a ex-world leader. Does his bidding, the bidding of the others.
Naomi, just hang her for 1 second. We're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to be back in a moment. What is Tony Blair's specific? Because they kind of downplayed this a little bit, although it's main battery for them. They had to have climate change, mental health, artificial intelligence. But trust me, the vax is where they're at. So what is Tony Blair? You called it out 2 years ago. What is he specifically telling the hedge funds, the venture capital people, all the media, and, of course, Davos, ma'am?
Okay. Well, first of all, it took me 10 seconds to find a chunk of the money that is behind his pronouncement. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gave the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change $3.472 million for just one region. And presumably, if I keep searching, I'll find similar cash flows for other regions around the world for global health infrastructure implementation. So let me take a minute as a nerdy CEO of a tech company to explain to everyone the lockdowns were a pretext for the vaccine. The vaccine's a pretext for this digital matrix. What are they signaling with the commitment to the digital matrix? Right now, you have a certain amount of free will. And in those 33 states where we fought so hard to pass legislation to ban vaccine passports, you have a lot of free will. You can choose what kind of health care you want or not to get health insurance. You can choose where to drive. You can choose to be untracked when you drive in a fossil fuel based car as opposed to an electric car, which tracks everything. You can choose, whom to see without your contacts being swept up and tabulated as this is a group of dissidents. We want to keep an eye on them. We want to, ramp up following their social media, mining their social media. So, and especially HIPAA, the law that protects your healthcare records, it's a federal law, is the enemy of the people who want this matrix. Now, if you're a hedge fund manager, or if you're Chase, or if you're the Rockefeller Foundation, right now you're at the mercy of history, and you're at the mercy of human beings' free will. And so there's risk in your investments, right? But if you create a matrix like this, there's no more risk. You can make people buy what you want them to buy. You can make people go where you want them to go. And you can switch them off and on. And you saw the results of this, by the way. I track this. This is a central argument in the bodies of others. By locking us down and keeping us, tracking us, preventing us from assembling, for instance, certain sectors like Amazon, like Nintendo, like Zoom were up 23% net revenue over the course of the lockdown. So that's predictable. So if you're a hedge fund person, there's going to be a lockdown, you invest in Amazon, right? Because Main Street is going to be unavailable. Well, why would you ever give that up, right? You'd want to do that if you're a capitalist at a macro major level for the rest of human history. Why give people back their free will? Why let them start their own businesses? Why let them launch their own movements? Why let them assemble freely? So what has been happening, especially with healthcare, is that HIPAA, which protects this last giant piece of human autonomy and privacy, is under attack. And it's under attack from many, many directions. One direction is, let's let 12-year-olds decide for themselves if they want a vaccine. Then the parents don't have the right to prevent them from being entered into this healthcare matrix, right? But another example I'll give you very quickly is that I avoided seeing a doctor, even for a checkup, for 2.5 years because I've lost all faith in organized medicine. I finally went for a checkup with this entity called One Medical. One Medical is a classic the kinds of digital companies you're seeing now that have a super lovely, easy user interface, fabulous app. All of their RNs are very attractive and do yoga. They've got highly styled postmodern waiting rooms. It's only $120 a year. Well, the numbers don't add up. I know this is a tech CEO. You're not going to make back your money for that kind of high-end service at $120 per person a year. But what the business model is they're going after your healthcare data. So when I was in my checkup with the RN, she said, "Oh, look, your file has lost your family medical history, and we've lost a bunch of stuff from an ER visit. You'll need to sign a release so that we can fill that in again." Well, I'm telling you, as a tech CEO, that is impossible, right? It's not like the database drops things like out of a file folder when you're going from New York to Massachusetts, as I did. It's all one database, and you can't drop chunks of a field of an account unless there's a virus or an attack from a hacker. It's just not possible. But what the release would do, if I was, ill-informed enough, as most people are, to sign it, is it bypasses HIPAA. And then I right away went back to read the terms and conditions. And I know this is nerdy, but bear with me. It's very important. And the terms and conditions, which no one reads, but which it's my job to read as a tech CEO, clearly state that they're working with quote unquote partners. And then I found this in their pitch deck from 2020, right, the middle of the lockdown, when no one knew what was happening, allegedly. And their partners are all of these giant healthcare networks, giant hospital networks, giant for-profit networks that I never realized, because I didn't read the terms and conditions foolishly when I just used that cute app, that all of my data is being sent to. And those people are going to own our data, our healthcare data, and quickly One Medical is branching into pediatrics and mental health. And so these people are going to be able to funnel your mental health issues, right, or your addiction issues, or whatever issues they want to create about you. Are you under stress? I'm sure that's going to be a question they'll start to ask. there any addiction in your family? Any bipolar illness? They're going to funnel that. They'll be able to funnel it to the government, or funnel it to Twitter, or funnel it to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, whoever wants it. And then there's going to be a profile of you that can be used to kind of criminalize your thought, switch you off, call you a terrorist, call you a danger to the republic. But also just it's vastly valuable for them in tracking everything you're doing and in kind of intimidating you if you don't have any medical privacy.